In the bitterly cold waters of the Norwegian Sea, where fog drapes the horizon like a shroud and waves crash against jagged cliffs, sailors have long told tales of a creature that defies logic, a being that lurks in the abyss, as ancient as the sea itself. Though modern science scoffs and rational minds reject the notion of sea monsters, the events that occurred aboard the Norwegian vessel Brattahlid in the summer of 1845 remain preserved in maritime records, journals, and whispered oral histories. It is a tale too consistent and too detailed to be easily dismissed. The Brattahlid was a modest cargo ship owned by the merchant Erik Gudmundsen, a respected man in Trondheim. She was to make a routine journey from Bergen to Bodo, carrying salt, cod, and barrels of whale oil. Her crew was seasoned sailors who had seen everything the North Atlantic had to offer: rogue waves, waterspouts, even whale migrations that blocked entire shipping lanes. Captain Jørgen Mikkelsen, a gruff but fair man of 43, had made the trip more than a dozen times. He was not one to be shaken easily. On June 14, 1845, the Brattahlid set sail under clear skies. The crew numbered 14, including a young cabin boy, Elias, barely 16, who had begged his uncle, the first mate, to take him on what was meant to be a straightforward summer voyage. The first 3 days were uneventful. The ship hugged the coast, passing fjords whose reflections danced in the water. But on the fourth day, as they reached the deeper waters between Lofoten and the open sea, strange things began to happen. It started with the birds. Thousands of seabirds had accompanied them since morning, diving for fish stirred by the ship's passage. But near midday, they vanished, not flew away, but fled in chaos, screeching and tumbling into the air as if from a silent explosion. One by one, they veered inland and disappeared into the distance. The sea, once teeming with surface fish, turned unnervingly still. Captain Mikkelsen frowned at the horizon. "Low pressure," he muttered, though no barometer reading backed his claim. The sky remained clear, but a strange haze hovered just above the waves. The temperature dropped sharply. Elias wrapped himself in an oilskin coat and noticed something odd. The water had changed color, no longer blue-green. It was now murky, almost black, with streaks of what looked like oil or ink. That evening, the lookout shouted. A disturbance off the starboard bow, something massive beneath the surface. At first, they thought it a whale, but it moved too slowly. The surface bulged, and the water groaned as if resisting pressure. For minutes, nothing happened. Then came the sound, a low, resonant bellow, like the creaking of 1,000 rusted hulls. The water began to ripple outward from a central point, forming a perfect circle. A smell wafted aboard like rotting fish mixed with iron. The crew covered their faces. Even seasoned hands vomited overboard. Just after midnight, the crew witnessed what they would later describe as the rise. The sea erupted in silencino splash, no roar. A shape breached the surface. A head, elongated and reptilian, covered in black scales that glistened like wet coal. 2 eyes, yellow and unblinking, the size of dinner plates, gazed toward the ship. The creature rose higher, revealing a neck as thick as a mast and lined with ridges. Some swore it was 60 feet long. Others said it had fins. One man claimed to see gills the size of barrels. No one agreed on every detail, but all agreed on this. It was not a whale. It was not a fish. It was nothing they had seen before. The beast lingered for a moment. Then it descended, vanishing beneath the surface with a sudden suction that pulled the ship slightly sideways. The rigging creaked violently. Mikkelsen shouted orders to steady the sails. The sea calmed, but no one slept that night. The following day, tensions ran high. One sailor, Lars, began reciting prayers aloud, convinced they had seen a Drauganthe ghost of a drowned mariner. Another accused him of bringing bad luck for speaking the beast's name. Fights broke out. Mikkelsen confined them to quarters. By afternoon, the compass spun wildly. The ship drifted in circles. The wind died. The Brattleith was becalmed. That night, the second appearance occurred. The moon hung low and red, casting an eerie light across the glassy sea. From the aft, Elias spotted something just beneath the water, a glowing shape, softly pulsating. He called the first mate, who lit a lantern and peered overboard. Shapes long, sinuous, moving in, pair circled the ship like sharks. They seemed curious, not aggressive. But when the crew lowered a weighted rope to measure depth, it never touched bottom. Suddenly, one of the creatures surged upward, striking the hull with a dull thud. The ship rocked. Then another blow, harder this time. A barrel rolled across the deck. Mikkelsen ordered the cannons loaded. Though the ship was not a war vessel, they fired a warning shot into the water. Nothing emerged. No blood. No movement. Only stillness. On the sixth day, the crew began hearing things, deep groans, rhythmic knocking on the hull from below, almost like communication. Elias swore he heard his name being whispered in the fog. Others reported seeing strange lights in the water, like lanterns moving slowly just below the surface. Food began to spoil rapidly. Salted cod turned sour. Barrels of fresh water smelled of sulfur. The ship's cat, Olaf, disappeared. The next night brought terror. Around 2 a.m., a crash shook the hull. Men were thrown from hammocks. Water gushed in through a splintered section of the hold. The crew scrambled to seal it, but they could hear scraping massive claws or some serrated appendage dragging across the keel. Above deck, the fog thickened. Visibility dropped to mere feet. Then came the attack. The beast, or perhaps a second one, erupted from the sea beside the port bow. This time, they saw the full body coiled like a serpent, armored in plates like a medieval dragon, with a tail that thrashed the sea into white foam. It lashed at the rigging, snapping a mast in two. A sailor named Henrik was pulled overboard. The creature did not bite him. It wrapped him in coils and dragged him down. He did not scream. His face was pale with shock. Mikkelsen gave the order to abandon ship, but there were no lifeboats left intact. They tried to fire flares. The fog smothered the light. For hours they waited, armed with harpoons and knives, until just before dawn, when the beast simply vanished. The sea stilled. The fog lifted. The damage was severe, but the Brattleith remained afloat. The crew, reduced to 10 men, repaired what they could. With no wind and a broken mast, they drifted south. On the 9th day, a fishing schooner spotted them near the Vestfjorden. They were towed to Bodø. What followed was a media storm. The surviving crew testified before a maritime tribunal. At first, many dismissed their claims, but the damage to the ship was real scratches that looked like claw marks, dents in the iron fittings, and a crushed barrel with deep gouges no human tool could make. The Royal Norwegian Navy investigated. Divers found unusual deposits on the hull fragments of something organic, tough like keratin, but embedded with tiny crystalline structures. Samples were taken to Christiania, now Oslo, but lost during transport. The case was quietly closed. The incident was reported in newspapers across Scandinavia. British naturalist Sir William Covington traveled to interview the crew. In his private diary, he wrote, "I believe they saw something real. Nature has not yet revealed all her children." Elias never sailed again. He returned to Trondheim and opened a bookshop. In his old age, he wrote a manuscript titled Under the Black Water, which was published posthumously in 1904. It contains vivid descriptions of the creature and sketches he claimed were drawn from memory. Several match 18th century depictions of the Kraken, though Elias never had access to such texts. To this day, fishermen in Nordland speak of something in the deep. Not whales, not squid. Something older, larger, more aware. In 2003, oceanographers mapping the seabed near Lofoten recorded a massive sonar anomaly hundreds of meters long, moving slowly at a depth of 200-300 feet. They dismissed it as a thermal current or sediment cloud, but one technician, in an off-record comment, said it had structure, bones, maybe, or armor. Even now, in an age of satellites and deep-sea drones, 80% of the ocean remains unexplored. Science can't disprove what it refuses to study. And sometimes, water hides more than it reveals. Because down there, in the silence, in the cold and black, something watches. And it remembers ships